Okay.
All right, so welcome. We're really happy to have you join us tonight. We've been hosting a series of talks. Getting to know the Seneca Creek watershed is the theme. Most recently, we had a talk on the excess salt, and the impact that has on our waterway. That talk was by Carl Van Nest, and it's recorded and on our website. And then we had a talk in January from Kevin Misner on monitoring the macroinvertebrates of Seneca. And that's a very interesting talk and also recorded and on our website. So we're very grateful that Bonnie has been willing to share this talk with us. Bonnie probably knows more about the Seneca Greenway Trail and Seneca State Park certainly than anybody else that I know. So I look forward to hearing her and appreciate her willingness to spend the evening with us. Go ahead, Bonnie.
Hi, good evening. I don't even see now how many participants we have because we had some problem getting this to be full screen. So excuse me, but I will go ahead. About the Seneca Creek Greenway Trail. This was Montgomery County's first destination trail. That's what they called it. In other words, this is a trail that just doesn't cover some little neighborhood or a back behind people's houses. It was a trail that people would get in their cars and drive to. And that was not something that we had in Montgomery County. There were some trails, a lot of hiking and biking paths, but nothing like this. It was conceived of in 1994 by Milt Kaufman, and I don't know why I've got this sharing up there. Oops. I'll go back up. Milton Kaufman in 1994, and he put together a coalition of groups that would support setting this thing up. American Hiking Society, Audubon Naturalist, Co-Nature, which I don't know, Mountain Club of Maryland, I don't know, Sierra Club, Seneca Valley Sugar Loafers, also Village Outreach Volunteers, I think was from Montgomery Village. So this was the group that all agreed we should do this and got in touch with initially the state park that owns the lower portion to get it going. So it was built, starting construction in
Sorry? Triggered, but
please
mute yourself.
If you're a participant, if you could please mute yourselves. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Are you on now?
Yes.
Okay, so what happened? Seneca Creek State Park owns the property that borders Seneca Creek, starting at the mouth of it at the Potomac River, all the way up to Route 355. So they started building in 1995 down at the C&O Canal, right above Riley's Lock. Volunteers did all the work to do this. They were led by Seneca Creek State Park and DNR staff. Bill Larson, who has since passed away, was the trail master. Trail master is the person who kind of oversees, are we putting it in the right place? Do we have it lined up right? Is the water going to run off correctly? So it took 5 years for that trail to go from the C&O Canal to Route 355. And if you've never done trail work, getting 16 miles done, even in 5 years, is a lot of work. When it was initially done, there was no mechanical equipment. The whole thing, every time you had to dig out the side of the hill to put a trail on it, etc., that was all done by hand. And that was a big deal. Upstream of Route 355, where there is a large parking lot, that all belongs to Montgomery County. It's the MNC PPC, now Montgomery Parks. Mark Nelson, who worked for REI, still works for REI, but he was an outreach coordinator. He took over as trail master. Volunteers completed the trail to the current terminus in Damascus Regional Park, which was another 11 miles. So this is a long trail. It's 26, 27 miles. There have been little reroutes, so it's hard to know exactly, but it got there in 2004. Again, half of it belongs to Seneca Creek State Park, half of it belongs to Montgomery County Parks. And that upper portion is actually, part of it is also the Magruder Branch Side Trail. So this is the state park portion. This map is available online. I'll have a link for you in a moment. And it is Also paper copies, you can get paper copies of this for $3 a piece in the state park office off of Clopper Road. And I don't know, are you able to see my cursor here moving? Anyone down at the bottom?
Yes.
Yeah, I can see it.
So the trail starts down here at the C&O Canal, follows the creek up and around. Every so often it will cross to the other side of the creek at a street crossing. So you come up one side, you take a bridge over with the traffic and hopefully a sidewalk, and then you go up the other side. So this whole thing up here is all the state park portion of Seneca Creek Greenway Trail. This map is from the volunteer website. There's a volunteer website called senecatrail.info, and that website, you can see it's pretty rudimentary, but it has some nice descriptions, tells you where to park, and it covers the entire trail, both sides, because it's volunteers, and the volunteers generally don't care who owns the property, they just like it. So this is the map and the contact information for that. If you just go to the Seneca Creek State Park website, Google that, it'll come right up and you'll have links to several different maps. One thing that I recommend is that when you're out hiking, it's a really good idea to have a phone number already in your phone so that you can contact someone in case of emergency. You can always call 911. This is assuming you have cell service, and don't count on it because there are areas where this trail is very low in the valley. Sometimes cell service is pretty bad, but it is a good idea to have, in this case, the Seneca Creek State Park Duty Ranger phone number already in your phone, so that if you know that you're on state park property and you come across something that you think they should know about, or you're having trouble yourself, you can call them. You can also call 911, but honestly, they don't know the trail, whereas the duty ranger is going to understand exactly what you mean when you say, I left from Black Rock Mill and I headed north, and they're going to know where you are. 911 is probably not going to know. The email on here, Seneca Creek State Park, scspnaturalist@gmail.com. You can use that to sign up to become a volunteer. And that Seneca Trail info website is the one that has the maps, a lot of other information. It's rudimentary. There are some pictures on there, but it's nice to have everything all in one place. The county map, they have maps of various sections. The Seneca Creek Greenway Trail again starts for the county at Route 355 and goes up to a crossing over the creek at 7.8 miles. And then there's another 3.3 miles on the Magruder Branch Trail. All of this is natural surface, and that Magruder Branch Trail ends on a paved hiker biking trail in Damascus Regional Park. And that hiker biker trail, the paved one, will take you all the way to downtown Damascus. So that's quite a long ways. This again, that's the county section. And there are descriptions on this website that tells you the distance between each road and where it's nice to park, because like it crosses Route 118, but there's very little parking. People are going very fast. That's not a good place to park, but you can park adjacent, and then you can learn how far is it to the next crossing. So I've done this whole trail, but I have not done all 26 miles in one day. I've done section by section, parking at one spot, following up to the next road, and then back down. So here are the maps and contacts for the Montgomery County parks. Again, park police, it's nice to have that phone number in case you have any problems. There is a trails manager, Bob Turnbull, who's very helpful with all this kind of things. And then the volunteer coordinator, Jim Corcoran, he's the one I would contact if you're interested in volunteering for the county parks. It's a rewarding thing. Other people pay for gym memberships. You don't have to do that. You can just do trail work and you will get a big workout. Trail work is a lot of fun. The county has these nice signs. The county now owns their own little sort of bobcat. So when they are going to be putting in a new section of trail, they actually go through and do the heavy cutting by machine, and then the volunteers go back in the lower left side. This tool here is called a McLeod or a fire rake. And so we just go in and smooth things out, make sure that it's sloped correctly. It's much nicer to do that after a machine has done the heavy lifting for you. A lot of loppers, things like that to cut things out. And then we actually also do help construction of bridges. So it can be a lot of fun getting these stuff done. One thing about bridges is these are in the woods and they're not close to roads, and often bridge building will be a 2-day affair. The first day, all you do is carry lumber, and that can take quite a while to carry all that lumber in piece by piece as pairs, etc., and then putting the bridges together. So State Park, this is any trail work that's going on between the C&O Canal and Route 355 is on the state section, and then in the county section, everything, the trail work is the same, but the tools and who you sign up with are different. So I encourage everyone to get out on the trail year round. It's wonderful. There is no bad weather, only poor clothing choices. And honestly, I have been out in every kind of weather, even in the polar vortex. It can be below zero, and I have my friends call it the lobster suit. It's actually supposed to be a sleeping bag in the form of it's like a down suit. I have been out in all kinds of weather and get actually overheated in my lobster suit. So get out anytime you can. Even if it's misty or a little bit rainy, it's lovely to be out there, and there are so many things to see. Wintertime, this winter, we haven't had a lot of snow, but when we have had some snow, I always try to get out. It's just beautiful to get out there when the snow is still on the trees. It's just beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Look at that. This is the Greenway Trail County section. It's just beautiful. There are blue blazes on the trees, so even if the snow hasn't melted off of the path, you can still find your way. Cross-country skiing, another option. The trail is sometimes really close to the river, and sometimes it's up away from the river. It's always a good time to be out in the wintertime. Kind of foggy, and there were deer off in the distance in the fog. And I'm always looking for ice. It's just amazing how the creek looks. It hits these little branches and things, and you get these icicles and these formations that are just lovely. I love them, love them, love them. Then we come to spring. So of course, what is that? A spring peeper. And we will start hearing them very soon. Frog Watch actually starts in this area February 1st. We haven't heard any yet, but you could. Today would have been a day to hear some spring peepers. Skunk cabbage is already up. That comes up actually in the wintertime. Skunk cabbage is actually a thermogenic plant. They can create their own heat, so they can push up through partially frozen ground so that they get out there very early. And that warmth also encourages insects to come in. And what you're seeing here, this odd looking alien thing in the center, green with little things in it, this is actually the flower. And because it's warm in there, it encourages pollinators to spend a little extra time so they get nicely pollinated. And then these leaves will get huge. This is going to die back, and the leaves will get big, and that usually means that it's a very damp area. If you see a lot of that, not someplace you think you want to walk. Spring beauty.
Do you know what animals eat the skunk cabbage? I'm curious.
Very few animals will eat it. It contains oxalates, so it's toxic. Beavers and bears will eat skunk cabbage, but most of the other ones will not. It's not considered an edible plant, although I believe you can boil it in changing water several times and eat it if you had to. But let's face it, it is called skunk cabbage. I'm not sure it would be fun. Spring beauty is one of the first and most abundant of the wildflowers that will be out almost all over the trail. I don't think there's a section of trail that does not have at least a few spring beauties. It can be anything from a light white to a deep pink, and they are just beautiful. They actually have their very own little tiny bee that pollinates them, that collects the pollen, which is pink. So you'll see a little bee, and it will have little pink saddlebags of pollen on them. They're really cute. And then in the spring, you will, if you've never been there, on Berryville Road, where it's the closest to the creek, the Greenway Trail goes along there. But closer, if you don't take the Greenway Trail, but stay right along the creek there, follow it upstream, and there are just several acres of these bluebells, and you'll walk right amongst them, and the other wildflowers, a lot of wildflowers in there, but there are just bluebells, bluebells, bluebells. They are beautiful all over the place in there. So that's the creek. Follow along, and that's at Berryville Road. Sorry? Was there a question?
Is it upstream of the Berryville Road there where?
Yes, there are a few parking spaces there where Berryville Road is right adjacent to the creek, and then you want to follow that upstream and stick close. There's more of a fisherman's path. Stay close to the river as you go upstream, and you'll just run into these right away. This is very close. In fact, in the background, you can see the old dam that used to divert water for the Shifley Mill downstream. So they start right there, and it's just gorgeous. There are some on the other side where the Seneca Bluffs Trail goes, but there are far more on this side. It's really nice.
So that's just up from the Big Bend? What?
Just from the Big Bend. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And if you watch the Friends of Seneca Creek State Park Facebook page, I always try to post something when I know that these are blooming so people can get down there. It's really, it's just amazing. It's worth getting down there to see them. And you'll see plenty of, there's trout lily, spring beauties, lots of other wildflowers, but predominantly the bluebells. And this is not exactly along the Greenway Trail, but while we're looking at flowers, I highly recommend the Peony Field in Seneca Creek State Park around Mother's Day. The peonies will be in bloom. There's never a peak time because they are various varieties. Some are early, some are mid-season, some are late, but the month of May, second 2 weeks of May, maybe early June, just look for Mother's Day. Go into the park, top of the hill, take a left. There'll be signs to indicate how to get there. This is the demonstration garden, which is just gorgeous. And then there's a whole field that's overgrown, and it's just peonies all over. These are the peonies, descendants of the original peonies from the Schwartz Gardens that used to be behind what is now Gaithersburg City Hall. So definitely worth a trip over there. And you can pick up the Greenway Trail from the office parking lot here. And if you want to go this time in May, they will be charging an entrance fee on weekends and holidays, but weekdays are always free. So go in the evening. Summertime, eastern box turtles. They are all over the place. This is a terrestrial turtle. Not hard to find. They don't go into the water at all. They don't lay eggs in the water. And they are interesting to find, and they're not uncommon along the Greenway Trail. Foxes, red foxes, also not unusual to see those, particularly early morning or late afternoon, but I've seen them any time of the day. Cardinal flowers tend to grow on the edges of the creek. They're not very common, but if you see them, they're just beautiful. It's a lobelia. They are more of a late summer, but they are just a beautiful flower, and hummingbirds love these. You might see a great blue heron. He's got a bluegill here. And then in the fall, also right off the Greenway Trail at Seneca Creek State Park is the Grusendorf Log House, which a lot of people have visited the park but don't realize that this is actually there. There's usually an open house once a month to go and see the inside. It was not actually built at this location. It used to be up on Clopper Road near where 118 crosses, and it was going to be torn down to make way for housing development. And it was the last original building from the original Germantown, which used to be right there. So they took it apart and rebuilt it down in Seneca Creek State Park. And this is a short walk up from the Greenway Trail. That would be easy to get to. So summertime, upper left is Jack in the Pulpit as it appears in the spring. And a lot of people are familiar with that. Fewer people are familiar with them in the fall when they have these red berries. Not edible for people, but something that you see. Usually the leaves have died back and you just see this stalk of red berries. They'll be green first and then they turn red. And it's unusual to see them that they're always in these various sizes. I assume that means they were or were not pollinated. I'm not sure, but that's kind of interesting. Something else you see in the fall is buck rub and buck scrape, which a lot of people confuse these two. Buck rub is where the bucks are rubbing their antlers on small trees to remove the velvet. The velvet is the skin on them that lays down all that bone to create them. And when they're finished growing, it dies back, it becomes very itchy, and to get it off, they rub on small trees. So that's a buck rub. Buck scrape is something else. That's a territory marking thing. They will typically, you'll notice that there are no leaves on the ground. It's down to bare dirt underneath here. And the bucks will come along and scrape down to the dirt. They will usually do this under some low-hanging branches, twigs, etc. And they will rub their faces and their foreheads on the twigs above, and they leave scent there. They have scent glands between their toes, so they're doing that also. And then they will also urinate in this spot, so they are kind of marking territory. The next buck that comes through will do exactly the same thing, and of course he will also urinate where that other buck had urinated. But when the does come through, they will also be smelling this, and if they are in heat, they may urinate. The bucks continually visit these and keep re-scraping and remarking, and if they smell the urine of a doe who's in heat, they know she is interested and they can follow that scent to find her. Whoops, sorry. And look up.
What were those nuts on the ground there? Were those black
Those
walnuts?
are black walnuts.
Okay.
Black walnuts. Those husks are green earlier in the year, and then they will turn black. They're edible, but getting to them is a problem. Number one, it's hard to get the husks off. Most people will put them in the driveway and drive the car over them. And if you've heard of black walnut stain for furniture, that's a really dark brown, this is where it comes from. So if you don't wear gloves, your hands will be brown for weeks afterwards. And then the nuts themselves are in shells that are very, very hard to open. I cannot open them just with a nutcracker like you can an English walnut that we're used to getting. Literally, for me, it's a hammer on a piece of cement to open those up, but they are edible. People do use them. And then look up. The trees are just beautiful. The foliage changes colors. It's just so nice to be out on the trail. And there are other historical things along the trail. Black Rock Mill is actually at the intersection of 4 trails that go through here. The problem is that the neighbors complained and got all of the on-street parking eliminated. There are no parking signs up there. This was not a decision by the state park. This was because people complained that there were people parking there. Some of it was legitimate in that sometimes people made it too narrow, but there are plenty of places that you could have parked and gotten your car completely off the roadway so emergency vehicles could still get through, but they eliminated all the parking. That is a problem. I suggest you write to your county council member and say, bring back some of the parking. So Black Rock Mill is in Seneca Creek State Park. There are lots of bikes on the trails. In the fall on Columbus Day weekend, there's the MoCo Epic done by the Mid-Atlantic Off-Road Enthusiasts called MORE that runs up to a 70-mile loop on trails and also on roads, but mostly as much as they can on trails through all of our trails, including the Greenway Trail. This is Big Bend on Berryville Road. So there are times when you're not going to be down there. This was a hurricane or a flood that came up over the road. In the far background over here, you can see there is a bulletin board. So normally there's space for quite a few cars to park along here, and then you would be going back to the right here to go upstream and see those bluebells, but not in flood stage. And there are interesting things in the woods along the trail. This is on the county section upstream from Route 355, that first section. It's just kind of interesting what you find in the woods. And you have to understand that we are hiking in the woods, but 50 years ago, this was open farmland. And there was probably a farm here, and this was just an abandoned vehicle on the farm. And now we have woods, but 50 years ago, actually, you can look at some aerial photos and see that there were no trees there. Basically no trees there. It was open farmland. So future plans, the plan for the Greenway Trail is that they will connect through to the Patuxent River. And Patuxent River State Park covers the top 14 miles of the Patuxent River from just east of Damascus all the way down to Georgia Avenue. That is actually run through Seneca Creek State Park office, and they do not own the property, but the Montgomery County Master Plan for Trails did maintain this to be part of the Greenway Trail. The state park is all on board to have that continue through, and I have recently seen some additional properties have been purchased by the county. So eventually we will get to a huge amount of trails that will all be contiguous. And on the Magruder Branch side trail, the Greenway Trail ends on the side closest to us at the bottom here. And then for a very long time, this is how you crossed the trail to access those last 3.3 miles of the Magruder side branch trail. It was not fun. It was slippery. In the wintertime, you can imagine if there's ice, just getting across these rocks. This was not a lot of fun. Volunteers, somebody just put in the rope there because it made it easier, but this was definitely a showstopper for most people for hiking this section. But as of this past summer, there is a bridge. So anybody who was familiar with it, you can now actually cross this creek on this bridge, and it's wonderful. Some of us thought that this would never happen in our lifetime, so we are very excited to have that go through. So that's all I had for you today. Any questions?
Are there any waterfalls on Seneca Creek?
Nothing major, no. I mean, there are small little things, but it does not cover a really large fall area. Most of what you see are the small things, for instance, where there used to be a mill dam, and that'll be, maybe a foot, 2 feet high. All right.
Thanks, Bonnie. I put a link in the chat. There's to the Montgomery County GIS Atlas of Parks and Trails.
Oh, excellent. Yes, that's where I had found
very
that
nice.
the new, they have started purchasing property up there. That's going to be wonderful.
Thank you so much, Bonnie. I mean, I really love this talk that you do. And I learned, this is the second time I've heard Bonnie do this talk, and I learned a lot the second time too.
Okay,
So
good.
it's just really a wonderful talk. I can't wait to get back out on the trail.